This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
After a kind of quiet last week, OpenAI is grabbing just about every major headline in AI this week. From its ongoing legal battle against Elon Musk to changing its agreement with Microsoft and also launching a huge partnership with Amazon, the ChatGPT parent company made moves in all aspects of its business last week. But the biggest move of all, well, it might have been their recent Codex shift as they silently prepare for the launch of their upcoming super app. So if you missed any of that, well, don't worry. That's what I do because let's be honest, it's pretty much impossible for the average everyday business leader to keep up with all of the AI news developments that impact your work on a day-to-day basis. So that's what our Monday show is for, our AI news that matters, and we're going to get into it right now. But first, welcome to Everyday AI. If you're new here, my name is Jordan Wilson, and well, we do this every day. So this is your daily, unedited, unscripted live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me not just keep up with all the AI news and developments, but I help you say this is important, this isn't, here's how to use all this information to grow your company and career. So if that's what you're trying to do, it starts here. But make sure you go to youreverydayai.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter. All right, so a lot happening in the world of AI this week. But first, I don't always shout out the live stream audience. So Amico, thanks for joining from Tokyo. Jose joining from Santiago. Michelle, happy Monday to you as well. Joe joining from Fort Lauderdale. Thanks, live stream audience, for tuning in. It's always fun to learn of all these AI updates together. So yeah, if you have any comments of this as we go on, of all these AI news and developments, let me know. But let's get started. The first one this week, yeah, it's what the AI world collectively has its eyes on, and that is the Elon Musk versus OpenAI trial. So if you have been living under a rock for the last 5 days, well, a high stakes legal battle between Elon Musk and OpenAI is finally unfolding in a California courtroom with consequences that could potentially reshape the future of the ChatGPT creator and the broader AI industry. So Musk is suing OpenAI, Sam Altman, and President Greg Brockman, arguing the company betrayed its founding promise to remain a nonprofit by shifting toward a profit-driven model. So this kicked off last Monday, so 7 days ago, with Elon Musk just kind of going on the stand, but this week a little different. So today, OpenAI co-founder and president Greg Brockman is scheduled to testify in the Oakland courtroom following 3 days of testimony last week from Musk himself. Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO and co-founder, is expected to take the stand during the week of May 11th. All right, so that's next week, marking another key moment in the trial. So what did you miss the first week? Well, I mean, if you've been following the news and all the reporting, nothing much, right? There were some new revelations that came out in testifying, but essentially Musk told the court that allowing a nonprofit to be converted into a profit-focused company would undermine charitable giving in the U.S., saying you can't just steal a charity. OpenAI maintains that its current structure still includes a nonprofit parent and that Musk supported the shift toward a for-profit model before leaving the company. So, according to court filings, OpenAI's lawyer wants jurors to see an alleged message from Musk warning Altman and Brockman that they would become, quote unquote, the most hated men in America if the case proceeded. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella may also be called to testify, as Musk claims Microsoft improperly funded OpenAI's commercial transition, a charge both companies dispute. So, starting this week and due to overwhelming courthouse demand, the courtroom will start streaming a live audio feed of the trial on its YouTube channel. So, a lot of the initial court reporting said it did not look very good for Elon Musk. Just kind of some heated disputes. Reportedly was not really answering the questions that were asked of him. He was being asked yes or no questions, and reportedly wasn't really answering those questions. So, yeah, I think we're going to get a lot more revelations this week, right? As OpenAI gets its chance to respond to Elon Musk and some of the comments that he said on the stand. But yeah, a lot that we covered in the newsletter, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But one of the biggest revelations I'd say is Musk pretty much admitted that XAI, right, the parent company of Grok, used model distillation from OpenAI to help train its Grok models, right? So again, he wasn't super direct in kind of the yes or no aspect of it, but reporters in the courtroom pretty much clarified that. So that's one big takeaway that I saw. So yeah, again, expect a lot more fireworks and revelations over this week and next week on what happens. So, speaking of big AI news, this week, four of the world's largest pretty much everyone, but the Pentagon and the U.S. Department of Defense has signed new agreements with NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Reflection AI to deploy their AI tools across the Pentagon's most secured classified networks. So yeah, this is adding NVIDIA, Microsoft, AWS, and Reflection AI to the Pentagon's kind of AI roster. So this move follows earlier Pentagon agreements with Google, SpaceX, and OpenAI, and reflects a broader effort to work with multiple AI vendors rather than the Department of Defense relying on a single supplier. So the Pentagon says the deals are designed to speed up its push to become an AI-first military, with the goal of improving decision-making speed and accuracy across land, sea, air, space, and cyber operations. So these new agreements allow the company's AI models and hardware to operate on impact level 6 and 7 systems, which are among the highest U.S. security classifications and are reserved for data critical to U.S. national security. So the diversification comes after a very public and legal dispute with Anthropic, which resisted Pentagon demands for unrestricted use of its AI, citing concerns about domestic mass surveillance and autonomous weapons. So Anthropic and the Defense Department are now in court, and Anthropic recently won an injunction blocking the Pentagon from labeling it as a supply chain risk. So the Defense Department says using multiple vendors helps them prevent AI vendor lock-in and ensures long-term flexibility as military needs and technologies change. So more than 1.3 million Defense Department personnel are already using GenAI.mil, a secure government platform that provides access to large language models mainly for non-classified tasks like research, writing, and data analysis. So strangely enough, this didn't get a whole lot of play, I would say, in the traditional news cycle, maybe because it was announced on Friday, but pretty big regardless. So yeah, we had already seen OpenAI and Google's reported deals with the Pentagon. So now it's essentially everyone else, right? Everyone from NVIDIA, Microsoft, AWS, Reflection AI, pretty much everyone in the room except for Anthropic. So this is going to be interesting, not just how this classified partnership plays out, but how this may impact the ongoing dispute between the Pentagon and Anthropic, right? If literally every other single big tech AI company has reached agreement with the Pentagon, we'll see how much Anthropic has to stand on, so to speak. I guess, when this whole dispute, all the AI model drama started to unfold about 2 months ago, you didn't have every single big player already with a deal with the Pentagon. So it should be interesting to see how this one plays out. We'll obviously be covering it every step of the way. And well, you might be wondering, why is this important? Well, I mean, if you're a federal employee, this is something to keep an eye on because obviously the tools that you use on a day-to-day basis have drastically changed. And we've seen some stories on how the White House in particular with the Anthropic's new Mythos model is trying to kind of even skirt around some of its own kind of rules in order to use Anthropic's upcoming model. So, yeah, it should be interesting to see how this ultimately plays out. All right. Well, here's what played out this week. No one's talking about an AI bubble. And why is that? Well, that's because we had the big tech AI week in earnings, and all of the companies reported stellar earnings. So this week, 4 of the world's largest tech companies reported strong quarterly earnings, setting the tone for the broader stock market and highlighting the accelerating impact of AI. So Alphabet, Amazon, Meta Platforms, and Microsoft all reported quarterly results after the close of the week. So these companies are, all involved in the Mag 7, and they've been major drivers of the S&P 500 performance in recent years. So their results are closely watched by not just, U.S. investors, but I would say just about anyone. Right. If you have a 401k, these announcements from the big tech companies on their revenue really, really matter. So Alphabet, so the parent company of Google, reported a huge 22% jump in revenue, reaching over $109 billion in for the quarter, marking its 11th straight quarter of double-digit growth. Revenue from Alphabet's AI-powered products soared nearly 800%, but demand for its AI compute services outstripped supply, suggesting that even stronger growth could be ahead. Amazon's cloud division, AWS, saw revenue climb 28% year over year to more than $37 billion, with a record $2 billion increase from the previous quarter. Amazon's custom-designed AI chips, Graviton and Trainium, are gaining traction as cost-effective alternatives, with Trainium revenue commitments now topping $225 billion over the long term. So both Alphabet and Amazon are rapidly expanding their AI offerings, with Alphabet planning to significantly increase capital spending next year to keep up with demand. Amazon's AWS can also now offer OpenAI models. More on that story and that partnership here in a bit. So analysts say these results show that heavy investment in AI are starting to pay off, easing concerns that spending would outpace revenue growth. Yeah. So what's the long and short of this? There was so much talk about 6 or 9 months ago about this AI bubble, right? I essentially told you that was nonsense, right? A lot of people were trying to draw comparisons between the dot-com, bubble burst in the late 90s. And I said, this isn't exactly like this. And the reason why is because if you look back at the dot-com bubble burst, it was a handful of emerging companies, right? Even you can make the argument against all of these, circular funding or vendor financing agreements between all of the big tech companies. But the reality is it's all backed by real revenue, right? Unlike the dot-com bubble burst of the late 90s, that was just a lot of speculation. Yes, there was some big companies at the time, but we are talking here more or less 6 of the 7 biggest companies in the US are exclusively focused on building AI. And as you can see here, there is real revenue. So if nothing else, I do think that this set of quarterly earnings from Amazon, Meta, Alphabet, and Microsoft will probably signal a shift to getting away from this talking about AI bubble talk. But let's be honest, all it's going to take is, one slip up quarter from any of the big giants, and those talks are probably going to reemerge. But I mean, the reality is they're not backed by data. The data is saying the AI sector is growing at a blistering pace, probably nothing like we've ever seen before. All right. Next piece of AI news. This might seem like a small little feature update, but I think this is actually a big shift toward the agentic enterprise. That's because Microsoft has announced the general availability of Agent 365, its new control platform designed to help organizations discover, govern, and secure AI agents that are already operating across their workplaces. So this news is timely because obviously AI agents are spreading rapidly across apps, devices, and cloud services. So, Agent 365 acts as a single control plane that lets organizations observe and manage agents built by Microsoft partners and also third party developers, including agents running locally on devices in SaaS products and across multiple cloud providers. So, Microsoft says Agent 365 now supports both agents that act on behalf of users and agents that run independently with their own credentials, which is important as more companies move from small pilots to large scale agent deployments. New discovery tools are rolling out throughout Microsoft Defender and Intune, allowing organizations to identify shadow AI, maybe such as local coding agents like OpenClaw or Claude Code. You can see where they run and block or restrict them if needed. Microsoft is also expanding visibility across clouds with a public preview for syncing agent inventories from AWS Bedrock and Google Cloud, reflecting the reality that many organizations build agents across multiple platforms. So, for organizations that want stronger isolation, Windows is previewing Windows 365 for Agents, a managed cloud PC environment where agents can run under enterprise security and identify controls. So, Agent 365 is now available through Microsoft's new 365 E7 or as a standalone license at $15 per user per month with Microsoft and consulting partners offering services to help companies set policies, reduce risk, and scale agent use responsibly. All right. So, that wasn't the only big news coming out of Microsoft. That's because OpenAI and Microsoft, well, they updated their agreement yet again. Seems like this is like the eighth time in the last year or so that we've seen an update in the original terms between OpenAI and Microsoft. But I think this is important to focus on, well, because it's ultimately leading to what kind of companies can access OpenAI's models depending on, well, what kind of cloud provider you use. So, Microsoft and OpenAI have revised their partnership yet again to remove Microsoft's revenue share from OpenAI products, also end Microsoft's exclusive license to OpenAI technology, and allowing OpenAI to sell its products across any cloud provider. So this change is newsworthy because it marks a major shift away from exclusivity in one of the most important partnerships in the AI industry, signaling a more competitive and flexible market for customers and developers. So Microsoft will still be OpenAI's primary cloud partner, and OpenAI's products will launch first on Microsoft's Azure unless Microsoft is unable to or chooses not to support those required capabilities. So, under the new terms, Microsoft retains a non exclusive license to OpenAI's models and IP through 2032, while OpenAI's capped revenue share payments to Microsoft will continue through 2030. Microsoft remains a major shareholder in OpenAI, with its stake right now valued at more than $135 billion, underscoring that the companies are still very much so still financially and strategically linked. Both companies say the updated agreement is designed to simplify the partnership while continuing the joint work on large-scale data centers, next-generation chips, cybersecurity, and global AI deployment. So the revised deal follows OpenAI's recent moves to diversify beyond Microsoft, including a multi-billion-dollar cloud agreement with Amazon Web Services. Also, they dropped what was commonly called the AGI clause out of this. So there's a lot of speculation on what that means, right? What does it mean that Microsoft and OpenAI kind of dropped this AGI clause that originally said the revenue sharing would continue until, essentially AGI was declared, right? Kind of like it's, man stepping on the moon and planting a flag, and they're saying AGI has been declared. So a lot of speculation around that clause being dropped. I don't want to read too much into it personally, right? A lot of people are saying, that means that maybe OpenAI or Microsoft is going to have some sort of AGI announcement soon. And that's one of the reasons why they kind of dropped the clause. I don't personally think so. I think the AGI declaration is going to be ever evolving. Personally, I think AGI was probably achieved late last year or early this year. And a lot of the big names in tech are starting to kind of agree, right? NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has alluded that we've, quote unquote, achieved AGI. So maybe the Microsoft and OpenAI just don't want that to be, that declaration to be too much of a dispute that may cause them to slow progress, either OpenAI or Microsoft. And obviously, Microsoft now working on, with its new super intelligence team, working on their own models and kind of racing toward super intelligence like everyone else. AI moves too fast to follow, but you're expected to keep up. Otherwise, your career or company might lag behind while AI native competitors leap ahead. But you don't have 10 hours a day to understand it all. That's what I do for you. But after 700 plus episodes of Everyday AI, the most common questions I get is, where do I start? That's why we created the Start Here series, an ongoing podcast series of more than a dozen episodes you can listen to in order. It covers the AI basics for beginners and sharpens the skills of AI champions pushing their companies forward. In the ongoing series, we explain complex trends in simple language that you can turn into action. There's 3 ways to jump in. Number 1, go scroll back to the first one in episode 691. Number 2, tap the link in your show notes at any time for the Start Here series, or you can just go to starthereseries.com, which also gives you free access to our Inner Circle community where you can connect with other business leaders doing the same. The Start Here series will slow down the pace of AI so you can get ahead. All right. More big developments, and y'all, don't be scared of the word codex. I've told you this so many times. If you are a non-technical business user, if your team is not using codex, you gotta wake up. And a recent, I won't say pivot, but a recent kind of marketing shift toward OpenAI is probably going to be your wake-up call on that. So OpenAI has rolled out a major refresh of its Codex desktop app, signaling a shift from developer-only tool toward a broader workspace for white-collar professionals. So the update introduces a new redesigned onboarding flow aimed at non-engineers with prompted onboarding flows to connect your email, calendar, and Google Drive, showing OpenAI's intent to make Codex more useful for everyday knowledge work. Performance and interface updates make the app faster and more polished, and new browser and computer use features allow users to annotate web pages and generate artifacts directly inside Codex. So not all users will see some of those capabilities, as OpenAI has disabled browser and computer use features in parts of Europe, right, as they get some of those legal loopholes tied up. So beneath the visible changes, the app now includes a new connections tab in the settings with an SSH option, allowing Codex to connect to a remote desktop and operate local applications from afar, a step toward cross-machine automation. So strategically, OpenAI is positioning Codex as a super app tier alongside of ChatGPT and Atlas, aiming to make it an operating surface for analysts, managers, and other knowledge workers, not just software engineers. So I've kind of alluded to this before, but I think that there's been a lot of maybe, I won't say misinformation. I think that the market has been misjudging the offerings from Anthropic's desktop app and Codex's desktop app, right? So one of the main differentiators here is people look at Anthropic's desktop app and they see, oh, it has normal chat, it has co-work, and it has Claude Code. So, it's something for everyone. So I think more and more people flock to it, especially since, Anthropic was kind of first to the punch in late 2025 with Claude Code in bringing that to the desktop. However, what most people don't realize is those 3 modes work in a silo, right? They don't talk to each other, where Codex just has, well, it's Codex. So it maintains kind of the consistency and the memory regardless of what you're working on. And, Anthropic did have a very viral moment with its computer use, right? So another thing that Anthropic was first to market with, but running side by side computer use tests, just saying, depending on what mode you're using, it's about 5 to 15 times faster inside of Codex. So personally, for me, and I think for a lot of companies I've talked with, the computer use inside Claude Code is not really usable, right? Right now, it's more of a shiny feature. Inside of Codex, especially if you're using some of the Codex Spark models, and the team has alluded that they're going to continue to update those. Yeah, it's really night and day, right? And that's not even a biased take there. Go run them side by side, run computer use side by side, and you'll see. And why is that important? Well, I think the future of autonomous work. I've talked about this on some of our previous Start Here episodes. I think there's a gap until we get to that fully always on autonomous AI agent that just gets work done. And that's kind of the desktop agent that you have a little bit more control of. And at least right now, if you compare Anthropic's, Claude on the desktop and OpenAI's Codex on the desktop, it's not really a comparison. Just saying. All right. Our last big piece of AI news, have alluded to this once or twice already. Yeah, big partnership news with AWS and OpenAI coming together on a $38 billion computing partnership. So the two companies have announced a new multi-year strategic partnership worth $38 billion, giving OpenAI immediate and expanding access to AWS's global cloud infrastructure to run and scale its core AI workloads. So this deal is super newsworthy because it signals a major shift in how frontier AI models like ChatGPT will be trained and deliver, as demand for computing power has surged across the tech industry. So here's some of the technical details. So AWS will provide OpenAI with Amazon EC2 Ultra servers that connect hundreds of thousands of advanced NVIDIA GPUs with the ability to scale up to tens of millions of CPUs as OpenAI needs to grow. So the infrastructure will support both real-time AI services, such as ChatGPT's responses, and the training of next-generation models, with all currently planned capacity expected to be deployed by the end of 2026. OpenAI says the partnership will allow it to expand compute capacity rapidly while benefiting from AWS's pricing, performance, security, and experience running clusters larger than 500,000 chips. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said the partnership strengthens the broader compute ecosystem needed to scale advanced AI systems and make them more widely available. So this partnership means continued improvements in AI tools on AWS, including faster, more capable models available through services like Amazon Bedrock, which already hosts OpenAI models used by thousands of organizations. So this is pretty big because it came quite literally the day after we saw OpenAI and Microsoft's kind of amended agreement that allowed for these type of partnerships to exist. So how is this going to actually influence the work that you do? Well, I think especially, at least when you look at between OpenAI and Anthropic, I think that Google and Microsoft are in a different, kind of category, as they have their own chips, as they obviously have their own cloud services. So the big kind of medium term and technically short term sprint between OpenAI and Anthropic has been on compute and uptime. And that's something that OpenAI, according to the stats, has been absolutely winning on. So, there has been a shift toward more and more enterprises using Anthropic, but their uptime has been pretty bad, right? Like industry standards, you want to shoot for 3 nines or 4 nines of uptime. So as an example, 99.99%. And that's something that Anthropic has not been close to achieving across its platforms. OpenAI is much closer to that. So pretty big news here. So what this might mean is, well, you might see models now coming out faster as OpenAI now has another big player to help train future models. And we've heard from OpenAI in the past, right? Essentially saying that they have a lot more powerful AI that they'd like to get out to their users faster. But when you have nearly a billion weekly active users, right, you have to have the infrastructure to serve those models to all of those users. So we'll see what this actually means in terms of getting models faster, getting releases rolled out to more people more quickly. Although I will say, if you look across the board, I'd say OpenAI is doing fairly well in that category, right? At least if you look at kind of the big three, right? I'd say Microsoft Copilot is still probably more known for serving OpenAI's and Anthropic's models, right? But if you look at the other three, Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic, I do think technically OpenAI is probably winning with bringing its most capable AI features to the market fastest, right? Google on the model side, they do, but a lot of their other AI features, usually have very slow rollouts, right? But, to Google's credit, they have, I would say, like 100 or more kind of AI features through all of their different platforms. But when it comes to just models to models, I do think that Google and OpenAI are in their own tier in terms of being able to serve kind of their frontier, cutting edge AI models to the most customers with the best uptime. And Anthropic is playing catch up in terms of uptime and reliability. So this one pretty big here from AWS and OpenAI with this new partnership. All right. That's not all. Those were the big stories, but we have a lot of other smaller AI updates that in another week, these might have been their own, kind of leading the pack. But here is our what's new and what's next, kind of our bullet point of some of the smaller stories, some new software releases, some rumors, all of those things. So here we go, our what's new and what's next wrap up. So OpenAI is reportedly developing an AI-focused smartphone with Qualcomm, MediaTek, Tech, and others, reportedly looking at a 2028 production. Yeah, that's big. OpenAI reportedly wants to skip the whole app phase and just bring you smart AI on the phone. The White House reportedly drafted guidance to let agencies bypass the Anthropic ban and retain Mythos access. OpenAI, this one's pretty big, rolled out a /goal command in Codex, which is pretty much a Ralph loop. So by default now, it is so much easier to get Codecs to work like overnight for multiple hours with that new goal command. NVIDIA released Nemotron 3 Nano Omni. That one's a mouthful. A unified multimodal model for real-time agent workflows. Yeah, you can run this one locally. OpenAI added Codex Pets. I don't necessarily get that one. Maybe it's more of something developers are gonna like. For me, more of a side feature, but it's worth mentioning. Also worth mentioning, but I think fell short. DeepSeek released their V4 preview. Didn't really do that great on the benchmarks. At least it's not even the top open model and really not competing with the frontier models, but it does really do a good job competing on price. Codecs added one-click workflow imports from other providers, so you can sync your settings, plugins, agents, and project configurations. Meta acquired Assured Robot Intelligence to strengthen its AI models for robotics. Google, this was an interesting one. They briefly released, so we don't know if it was an accident, and then they pulled back Cosmo, their on-device AI agent, ahead of their Google I/O event. OpenAI confirmed new features in Codecs, including an iOS app and OpenClaw integration. That one will be big. So no timeline on those, but I do think those are two of the bigger most wanted requests, and OpenAI did confirm those on the social medias. Anthropic rolled out new connectors for Claude around creative work. Apple is reportedly planning to let Siri route requests to Gemini and Claude in iOS 27. So maybe we'll get an announcement of that at their next month's WWDC conference. OpenAI begins a limited rollout of GPT 5.5 Cyber. Spotify rolled out verified by Spotify badges to identify human artists and flag AI profiles. That one I'm mixed on. I'm like, it's a good idea, but what if you're an amazing human artist and people think you're AI, but you're not, quote unquote, verified enough? So I don't know. That one's good in theory, but also kind of tricky. Google Gemini rolled out a feature to now where you can create downloadable files directly in chat. We did cover that on our Friday features segment. So if you didn't listen to that already, make sure to go listen to Friday's show. Anthropic is finalizing a $1.5 billion joint venture with Blackstone, Goldman Sachs, and others. Elon Musk, I did mention this earlier, but worth mentioning again, testified that XAI partly used OpenAI models in a distilled way to train Grok. HubSpot rolled out agent pricing. This one's interesting. $1 per qualified lead and 50 cents per support resolution. So we talked about this last week when we went in our Start Here series, talked about headless software and what that might look like for pricing moving forward. So it looks like HubSpot might be one of the first companies to test that out. 11 Labs launched 11 Music. Grok is starting to roll out connectors, finally. Google is testing a new Omni video model, which could debut at I/O, essentially a single model that might have multimodal capabilities. So maybe we'll see a version where it's not, Gemini 3.2 or 3.5 Pro and then VO separately. It could just be a new Omni model, or that could just be a test. A new report said Anthropic held early talks with UK startup Fractile to buy its inference chips as early as next year. And Google is testing new text-based Gemini models on LM Arena. Again, maybe potentially signaling toward a I/O update on the model side. We would assume, that we are going to see whatever the successor to Gemini 3.1 Pro is. All right. That's a wrap. A lot going on in the AI news world. Like I said, this week, OpenAI really dominated the headlines after having a somewhat quiet last week. But another thing to keep in mind, Anthropic has their developer conference coming up this Wednesday. So Anthropic also had a quiet last week, but with their developer conference happening, I would expect some new updates. Also, OpenAI has kind of like a release party type event for GPT 5.5 this week. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some other announcements tied in with that. So yeah, regardless, if you're using AI day to day as part of your critical workflow, which is like 99% of everyone, you can't take a week off. So if you don't have hours to spend every day tracking all of these AI updates, make sure you join us on Mondays as we bring you the AI news that matters. I hope that this show and others are helpful for you. If so, let someone know about it. If you're listening live on LinkedIn, we appreciate that. Please repost this to share this with your network. And if you're listening on the podcast, appreciate your support. As always, please make sure to follow and subscribe to the show. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, go to youreverydayai.com. We're going to be recapping everything we went over in today's show, as everything else that's breaking and that matters. So thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.